What if the truest version of yourself is the one the world least wants to see? The deeper you strip away the mask's years, there's the more you realize how much society depends on them to keep spinning. We're born into a masquerade, handed roles to play before we even know who we are. But some of us can't stop peeling back the layers, chasing an authenticity that feels like both a lifeline and a curse. History is scarred with those who refused the script Socrates, questioning until his last breath. Van Gogh, painting truths no one could bear to look at. They weren't just outcasts, they were threats. Their rawness a blade against the fabric of pretense. Why does authenticity provoke such unease, such quiet hostility? Because it demands a reckoning, not just with who we are, but with who we're too afraid to become. Have you ever spoken a truth so bare it hung in the air like a storm cloud? Did the room shift, eyes dart away, as if your honesty was a trespass they couldn't forgive? It's not your imagination. Authenticity doesn't just unsettle, it accuses. When you shed the mask, you expose the ones others cling to, and that's a mirror they'd rather shatter than face. Our minds are wired for the dance of conformity, not the solitude of truth. Neuroscience shows the brain lights up with fear when social norms crack. Authenticity feels like a threat to the tribe's fragile truce. This isn't a glitch. It's survival's echo, etched into us from a time when fitting in meant living another day. To bare your soul was to risk the pack's rejection, and rejection was a death knell in the wild. Today, that fear wears a subtler faceplate, smiles that fade, conversations that skid to safer ground. Society doesn't banish the authentic with torches. It does so with silence, a cold drift that says you've gone too far. Yet, the paradox cuts deep. Those who lived most truly often redefined the world. From Hypatia's unyielding reason to Turing's quiet defiance, their authenticity outlasted the masks that mocked them. Why do we recoil from the real, only to worship it once it's safely passed? Because authenticity is a wildfire, beautiful, uncontrollable, and terrifying until it's tamed by time. Schopenhauer saw through the charade, calling life a theater of wills clashing beneath polite disguises. He argued the authentic soul stands alone, not out of pride, but because it can't play the part. Most people wear their masks like armor, shielding themselves from the chaos of what's real. Deep thinkers, those who crave the unfiltered, find that armor suffocating, a lie too heavy to bear. Have you ever felt that weight? The itch to drop the act when everyone else keeps performing. It's not rebellion. It's a hunger for something unscripted, a pulse beneath the polished surface. Schopenhauer believed this split was inevitable. The will to truth tears you from the crowd. Where others find safety in the play, you see only shadows pretending to be light. Kierkegaard felt it too, trembling at the abyss between the self and the roles we're forced to wear. His anguish wasn't despair. It was the cost of refusing to bow to the script. Van Gogh painted not what he saw, but what he felt, a rawness that left him broke and alone. His canvases screamed authenticity, but the world turned away, preferring the comfort of muted tones. This is the deep thinker's fate. To live unmasked is to live apart. The more you align with your core, the less you fit the mold. Then the world doesn't forgive that easily. But there's a strength in it. Schopenhauer called solitude the authentic mind's refuge. He urged us to embrace it, to let the stillness sharpen what the crowd dulls. The modern world makes that harder. Masks are currency now, traded for likes and follows. Social media doesn't reward the real. It thrives on curated selves, polished until they shine. Scroll through the endless parade. Facades outpace honesty, filters bury flaws. The algorithm knows we'd rather applaud a lie than wrestle with the truth. Yet, the brain conspires to cognitive ease, keeps us tethered to the familiar, the rehearsed. Authenticity demands effort, a leap into the unknown most won't take. In crowds, its worst status hinges on the mask, and the real becomes a threat to the game. One-on-one, your truth might resonate. In a group, it's a challenge to the pecking order. The backfire effect digs in. When you pierce the illusion, people don't soften, they harden. Your authenticity doesn't enlighten. It entrenches as egos double down to protect their stage. Schools drill us in lines, not questions. Workplaces prize the polished, not the raw. The system doesn't want your truth, it wants your compliance, a mask that fits the frame. Socrates tore at Athens' veneer, asking questions that stripped the city bare. They didn't thank him. They poisoned him, a warning to anyone who dares unmask the lie. Hypatia stood firm in a world of dogma, her mind a beacon too bright for its time. A mob ripped her apart, not for her words, but for the authenticity they couldn't silence. Nietzsche danced beyond the script, crafting a self too vast for his eros stage. They branded him mad, but madness was just the mask they forced on his truth. Van Gogh's brush defied the rules, his colors bleeding with a soul no one wanted to see. He died in obscurity, his authenticity a gift the world accepted only in hindsight. Turing cracked codes and built worlds, but his real crime was living without pretense. Society didn't honor him. It broke him, punishing the man behind the genius. These weren't just thinkers, they were souls laid bare, defying the masquerade. Their lives were ruptures, splitting the seam of a world stitched with illusion. But those ruptures endure their authenticity carved paths we walk today. Society doesn't hate the real. It fears the vulnerability it demands, the courage it exposes. If you've ever felt the pull to drop the mask, you're not alone. The world may flinch, but history hums with voices like yours, echoing across the silence. So what do you do when the crowd clings to their costumes and you can't? You don't have to force their eyes open sometimes. Living your truth quietly is enough. Camus knew this, wrestling absurdity with a clarity that didn't demand applause. Authenticity isn't about preaching. It's about being, even when no one watches. The world needs the unmasked, even if it doesn't see it yet. Every Shiftard thought, freedom began with a soul brave enough to stand uncovered. You don't need the stage to matter, just those who feel the same ache for the real. One heart stirred by your honesty outshines 1,000 masked glances. Still, the tension lingers. To live authentically is to risk the cold shoulder. The crowd hides in their roles while you walk exposed, raw against the wind. But what if that exposure is your power? What if the mask you shed is the chain they'll never break? Look around, a world of performances chasing applause that fades by morning. Deep thinkers don't just see through it, they live beyond it, building what lasts. Your truth is a thread in a tapestry the world can't yet read. It's not your burden to fit their script, it's theirs to catch up when the curtain falls. History bends toward the authentic, even if it bends them first. The question isn't whether you'll be cynics, whether you'll keep peeling back the layers until you are. So, as you stand beneath the weight of your own unfiltered soul, what drives you forward? What truth do you carry that the world isn't ready to hold?